Welcome back to New York City, the New York half of this morning's Morning Joe program. A beautiful shot of New York City. Joining us now, the chief political correspondent for Politico, Mike Allen. He's got a look at today's Politico playbook. Hey, Mike.
Hey, good morning, Wally.
So let's talk about Acorn. And before we get into this soundbite that we're going to play that's caused all this ruckus, what is Acorn and why are they controversial? I'm sure a lot of people don't know exactly what they do.
Sure, including most reporters in Washington. It's the Association for Community Organizing Reform now, ACORN, and it calls itself the nation's largest community grassroots organizing group. But Willie, it's become a proxy for everything that conservatives are concerned about the loony left. It's taken a shorthand for the most extreme left groups, and you'll recall that during the election, they were accused of helping President Obama using taxpayer funds. So it's a group that's been a long-time bugaboo of conservatives.
And they've been charged with some voter registration fraud and things like that. So so now we know that the Census Bureau has cut ties with Acorn, not going to work with them anymore. The Senate yesterday voted by a wide margin to stop granting money to Acorn. And now here's the soundbite that's caused such a stir. This is from an undercover documentary filmmaker. Says he went into Acorn and says Acorn, as you'll hear on the tape, offered to give him tax advice as he posed as a pimp. Watch this clip.
She is good. I'm trying to tell you, Tom, she won't know how you can make it legal. She's really good. She's not gonna get in trouble.
Okay. The type of business or service you provide. Let me make sure there's a code for it. Okay.
A code for prostitution?
Well, yeah, because we have to. I have to have a name and a code number. Your business is a performing artist.
A performing artist?
But you are. Okay, so you're not lying.
That's kind of boosting my ego.
But you're a performing artist.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So stop saying prostitute.
Okay, we're going to read a statement from Acorn responding to that in just a second. Joe, you want to weigh in on this?
Wow.
Well, yeah, the thing is, there are 3 tapes now. There's, I think, a Baltimore tape, a Washington tape, and this New York tape. And you have Acorn officials in all 3 offices specifically saying, according to the tapes, this is how you evade taxes. This is how you set up these prostitution services. And at one point, the guy posing as a pimp, and Willie, seriously, his dress was as bizarre as anything you wear on a Saturday night. It was over the top. But he said, okay, but I've got 10 Salvadorans that are going to be living in this apartment turning tricks. How do I do that? And then Acorn started to help him do that. It is really an embarrassment for Acorn. And so I guess, Willie, yesterday the Senate cut ties with him, right?
Yeah, they did. By a margin of 83-7 was the vote. They voted to deny federal grant money. Mike Allen, I want to read this statement from Acorn and then go back to you just real quickly here from Acorn. The relentless attacks on Acorn's members, its staff, and the policies and positions we promote are unprecedented. We are their Willie Horton for 2009. We are the boogeyman for the right wing and its echo chamber. I cannot and will not defend the actions of the workers in this video, who have since been terminated. They've been fired, but it's clear the videos are doctored, edited, and in no way the result of the fabricated story being portrayed by this conservative, they call it conservative activist filmmaker. That's from the chief organizer at Acorn. Mike, how deep is this problem? Is the Democratic Party, is the White House, who's worried about this?
Well, it is a big problem, Willie, and the mainstream media has been very slow on this, just as we were with Van Jones. And there's now been a series of stories that have bubbled up on YouTube, on the web, that have come to really hurt Democrats, hurt the administration, and that the media has not caught on to. And I think that we need to find a new system to respond more quickly to these stories, because there's real resentment online on the fact that these stories go for days and days, and we can see from that video that this is a completely legitimate story. These filmmakers came to biggovernment.com, Andrew Breitbart's website, but was covered heavily on Fox News. But I talked with Andrew about this over the weekend, and he was frustrated that we were slow about it. And we now have Van Jones, we now have this story. We have the concerns out in the country about the president's speech to schools, and reporters were slow to realize that this was part of that silent majority that's not silent this summer.
Joe, who's this a problem for, this Acorn story?
Well, it's obviously a problem for the president because he's so closely related to Acorn as well as the Democrats. I think the biggest problem, though, is with the mainstream media. Mika, yesterday on our radio show, read a Pew poll that, something like 68% of Americans, 63% of Americans don't trust the mainstream media anymore. They believe they're biased. They believe that and that's up 30 percentage points. Again, that's not a Fox News poll. That is Pew Research. And so let me ask you, Mika, this very simple question. Do you think it would have taken a week if the Christian Coalition had encouraged people to break the law, and there was on tape Christian Coalition officials saying, this is how you break the law, this is how you avoid paying taxes, this is how you lie to the IRS, this is how you set up sham organizations to have prostitution in your apartment with 10 Salvadorans. Would the New York Times print a special edition for that?
No.
Would they blow out? I mean, come on.
Okay,
seriously, this is such a joke. First, again, with Van Jones, which the New York Times admits now that they were too slow to get to, and then with this story, this is clear, unadulterated media bias.
They would have covered it immediately if that were the case. And I would say that we should really look at this, Andy, and we should look at a couple of these stories of just the past few weeks and see if there is the delay that we appear to have. Because if so, I really do think we need to take a look at how we cover stories. We've got to ask the questions. I remember reading a Twitter, I believe it was Jake Tapper, who was trying to defend the fact that he was asking questions about Van Jones. We've got to ask the questions.
If you think it's a problem, and it very well may be, I mean, there is this whole new form of journalism, which, Mike is talking about, which is the web. A lot of people out there, are getting their news increasingly from the web, from websites. So, it's changing. Right. And I think that they're going to show up mainstream media. And so, it's something that they have to pay attention to increasingly, don't you think?
No doubt about it. And Willie, I do think it's a problem. Especially, this is an embarrassment for the mainstream media because they missed the Van Jones story last week. The New York Times did not write a story on Van Jones until he resigned.
Yeah, and Acorn, as we mentioned now, Acorn is says they're going to sue Fox News. So we'll keep you posted. We'll keep you posted on this story. Hey, Mike Allen, thanks so much. I know you guys have a great. I was reading it this morning, a Politico exclusive story about conflict of interest within the Gang of Six on people on the Senate Finance Committee on their aid. So that's a must-read this morning at Politico.com. Hey, Mike, thanks so much for bringing us the Acorn story.
Revolving door is spinning. Y'all have a good day.
All right, we'll check it out. Thanks. And coming up in a few minutes, the New York Times' Andrew Ross Sorkin will be here.